When it comes to attribution modeling and reporting inside of Google Analytics 4, a lot of time and focus and reports are given to understanding how attribution modeling works and attributes value back to different marketing channels, different sources and mediums and different campaigns you're running. However, another way of thinking of exactly the same thing is understanding that when a conversion occurs, it goes back in time on that user journey and up to 90 days and attributes value backwards in time. So not just to the session and the marketing channel that drove the session, but to the date of that session. So in a sense, when it comes to reporting on this data, we've got two types of date ranges we can use. We can use the date of the conversion and we can attribute back in time and look at the marketing mix, or we can look at the date of the session that eventually converted later on. Because what we're looking at here is understanding two different ways of the same thing. And in Google Analytics 4 specifically, the model comparison report gives us both ways of viewing this data. It's called the reporting time, and it gives us the conversion time and the interaction time as options. Now the default is the conversion time, and that's the default across the whole of Google Analytics 4 as well. And that means that the conversions that occurred yesterday stay attributed to yesterday. So if I run that report for yesterday today, and I've got 100 conversions, if I run that report next week for that same date range, there'll still be 100 conversions there. And that kind of makes sense logically because 100 conversions did occur yesterday. But what we're looking at when we go back in time, what we look at if we change that to interaction time, is attributing the value back to the date of the sessions or the interactions that were attributed leading up to that point of conversion. So let's take an example. So let's say you run a campaign in July. You've got a campaign, let's say it's a display campaign, a paid campaign, and all of the cost, all of the impressions, the clicks data, and even the session data occurs in July. Now, users that engage with that campaign in July could come back to visit the website, even via different channels in August and then September. And let's say by that point, by the end of September, they might convert. So now what we've got in Google Analytics 4, we've got traffic from July and the campaign in July getting value from a conversion that occurred in September. Now, when it comes to reporting on this campaign, we've got our sessions, our clicks, impressions, and cost data in July. And we've got our conversion and our revenue, let's say it's e-commerce, we've got our revenue data in September. So if I wanted to work out things like conversion rates or cost per acquisition or things like return on ad spend, I can't because I've got my conversion data over here with no cost. And I've got my cost data over here with no conversions. So these become a bit misaligned. So what the interaction time reporting time option gives us in the model comparison report is it says, well, let's give the value back to the date of the session, the date of the interaction that generated that conversion. And so what this does is that brings them both in line. So now let's say I've got some revenue on a conversion occur that in September. It's going to take that back and attribute it back to July. So now if I use July in my report, I've got my cost, my clicks, my impressions, my sessions, and more importantly, my conversion and revenue data all in one place. So I've aligned that data together so that I can do those conversion rate reporting. I can do the cost per acquisition and the return on ad spend. Now, I suppose the downside of this type of reporting is that you have to wait up to 90 days for that data to be finished, to be collected, fully collected. Because during that 90-day period, that data for July can change. That can be, in flux. So this isn't going to be really useful for things like real-time media optimization. But what's going to be really useful is if you're going to be running another campaign down the line. So let's say you're going to be running another campaign next July. We can look at the total attributable value for this campaign in Google Analytics 4, and we can attribute the value back into July. Now, the way that we do this is relatively straightforward. So in the model comparison report, there is a toggle at the top of the page, which enables us to switch whatever we're looking at from the conversion time to the interaction time. And so we can do that. We can just swap out the conversion time to interaction time, and it real-time updates the data that we're looking at in the middle. It doesn't matter what attribution model we're using. We can still use all the variety of different attribution models that Google Analytics 4 provides. But what we're now doing is we're changing what that date range means. So the date range we've selected in the top right corner of the screen inside of Google Analytics 4, we're now looking at the date of the sessions that contributed rather than the date of the conversions. So it's a really valuable tool. It takes a bit of getting used to and understanding of what it's doing. If you're used to the conversion time that's used everywhere else in Google Analytics 4, you can leave it on conversion time. But if you are looking at aligning that data from the sessions and the clicks and the cost data to the attributed conversion data, then this is going to be a really valuable asset, a really good tool in the tool belt to be able to do those performance marketing reports more effectively and get a better sense of the overall performance of those campaigns. This is a really interesting concept when it comes to attribution and reporting on attributed data. So go into Google Analytics 4, that model comparison report, and have a play. Try changing the reporting time from conversion time to interaction time and use different attribution models and see what happens. Remember to go back at least 3 months to make sure that the data's static and won't change, but it doesn't stop you from looking at data over the last couple of months as well. Just know that every time you run that report, it might change. I hope you've enjoyed watching this. I'll catch you in the next one.